Hey there, this is Dr. Asitar Bear. I teach this class every week. This class in heart rhythm meditation. Um, and heart rhythm meditation is a method of meditation comes out of Sufism. The Sufism of Hazrat Inayat Khan was an Indian mystic and teacher taught in the early 20th century in Europe, the United States. Um, and the method is different from others that you might be familiar with. Um, really focus a lot on the breath and optimizing the breath. So I'll talk a little bit about what that means in the class. Um, I teach this class as a live stream every single week, but you don't have to have come to any of the previous classes in order to get something from it. I teach in this format to just make it very accessible to everybody. You can come for whatever portion of the class you'd like. And of course, all the recordings are available on my channel. If you would like a more systematic step by step instruction in meditation, I encourage you to take a look at my Patreon page. I offer a full step by step course in meditation that carefully goes through it, in a step by step fashion. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the description. Um, so the first thing that you think about often with meditation is how do you sit? What is your what is your posture like in meditation? And there's all kinds of images out there of people sitting in very difficult style postures, full lotus position or whatever. Um, uh, that's not necessary. I mean, that's part of the grand tradition, of course, um, but it's not necessary. You can sit very well in a chair. Um, what I recommend is even if you have a chair that's not really very well suited for meditation, like the one I'm sitting in right now. I'm sitting in a regular, kind of, I don't know, old school desk chair here. Yeah. So I like to go in a very back of the chair, but I don't have my back touching it. Okay, I just have. I'm tall, so it works for me to be at the toward the back of the seat, right? For others, it can work to be more on the edge, perched on the edge, right? What you want is you want your spine to be upright, and yet you want to be relaxed, right? Now, you can have your spine be upright and not be relaxed, right? That's totally possible. You can kind of force your spine to be straight, but purpose of meditation is to relax, revitalize yourself, and open yourself to all the different layers, levels of being that the human being contains. So if you're putting yourself under a lot of tension, if you're physically uncomfortable while you're doing that, that just makes it all the more difficult, right? It's already difficult enough, Well, let's not add to it. All right. So we want upright posture. A lot of times, um, certainly for me, a lot of times I kind of lean forward a lot. Okay. So just make sure that your head is in line with your spine and that your weight is sitting on your sits bones, right? Um, Now, once you have that down, okay, you can have your hands on your knees, right? Either palm up or palm down, whichever you prefer. Some of the time, we're going to work with postures where we place the hand on the chest or the belly. So it's not bad if you have some kind of chair that has arms on it, right? Like my chair. See how my thing is sitting on my armrest right here. So if I want to place it on my chest, I don't have to support the whole weight of my arm, while I'm doing that, right? So that can be a benefit. If you don't have that, that's okay too, right? You want to be comfortable, but not too comfortable, right? Because you also want to be energized, right? So look for a balance between, you don't want to go to sleep, right? Sleep is different from meditation, Um, Sleep is great, very important, right? We need to be well rested, uh, but it has Different purpose. Excuse me. All right. So, all right. Once you've gotten your posture together, we can turn our attention to the breath. All right, and want to really develop the breath, cultivate the breath, and this means paying attention to it. Right. This is one of the common foundations of meditation. It's not in every single meditation method, but it's in a lot of them. Right. Pay attention to the breath. Um, Now, I'm going to give you a couple of things that are going to make it easier to pay attention to your breath, right? If I say to you, pay attention to your breath, but I don't tell you to do anything to your breath, it's kind of hard to pay attention to it, right? Because you're fully capable of breathing without paying attention to it, right? So it's a very easy situation for your mind to wander. Um, Now, your mind wants to wander anyway, right? The minute you say to your mind, focus, your mind says, well, I don't know. I've got so many other things I could be thinking about right now, right? So, um, an intervention with the breath can be helpful because then am I paying attention, right? Am I watching my breath, or have I drifted off? Have I stopped paying attention, right? So here's the five things that we want to do to our breath to make it really optimal. Okay, we want to make our breath deep. That is abdominal breathing. Okay, your belly should be expanding and contracting as you breathe. All right, very important. Okay. Second, we want to make our breath slower, okay, so that our breath has a smooth and slow rhythm to it. All right. Um, that is, I'll discuss the importance of all these things, but I'm just going to say what the five things are. All right. um, and okay, so deep, smooth. Now, we also want to make our breath rhythmic, okay? It's very common for one side of the breath to be unbalanced relative to the other side. All right. That means you breathe longer on, say, your exhalation than you do on your inhalation. And if one side is longer, since you're working with the same volume, right? If one side takes longer to do, then the other side is going to be more intense. The flow of air is going to be greater, in other words, right? So we want to even out the breath, right? That's what I mean by making it rhythmic, okay? Making the breath equal length on the inhalation and the exhalation, all right? Now, this is a natural kind of pattern to have your breath be even like that, but it's very common for it not to be that way, right? So deep, slow, rhythmic, okay? Now, if you can only do part of what I'm saying, that's still good, right? So, like I said, this method of meditation, it's a skill like anything else. It takes some time to learn, um, and you might not get it all right away. That's okay, right? Or even if you do, right? If you're able to follow these instructions, it's still a journey, right? Um, okay, so deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered. Okay, this is heart rhythm meditation. So heart centered. Now that what that means, it means a bunch of things, right? So, what we mean by heart is the physical heart, okay? We also mean the emotional, the energetic heart, that what is covered by the heart chakra, okay? The heart as the center of your desires, your values, what you love and care about, who you are on a very deep level, okay? And the Sufis teach that the heart is the vessel which contains the soul, okay, our infinite, perfect, timeless qualities that make us unique, a kind of blueprint of being, all right? So the heart is very, very important, right? It's a good thing to focus on in meditation. It's not the only possible thing one could focus on, right? There's, like I said, many, many different kinds of meditation, and each one is different, right? But with this one, right, we're doing this to connect us to ourselves, right? To explore and uncover who we really are, right? And so to make your breath heart centered is part of that, right? so that as you're breathing, you're also focusing on what is your breath doing? Where is your breath centered? Okay. So we have many different ways of going about this, right? And that's part of the beauty and complexity of this method. But one way to make the breath heart centered is to feel your heart, to imagine, right? Take the point of view. Your heart, the part of you that holds your deepest emotions, the things that you value and care about, etc. Like I said, right? Even the timeless light of your soul, to feel that that is what is taking in the breath. Okay. So the air part of the breath, of course, is going to be going in through your nostrils, right? So on that level, feel that happening as usual, right? But breath is not just air. Breath is energy. Okay. The energy part of your breath, imagine that that comes into your chest as you breathe in and expands and radiates the energy of your heart as you breathe out. All right. Deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered. Okay. And the last element is to make the breath full, to make the breath bigger and more powerful than it normally is. Okay. So if this is our whole breathing capacity like this, we usually only breathe a little bit in the center. That is, we don't breathe all the way out. We don't get to zero. And we don't breathe all the way in either, right? Because to do that requires a lot more muscular activity than we're used to putting into breathing, right? So, all right, now that I've explained this, why this is, and whatever, I know I haven't said that much about why all of this is important. I will. Um, but let's just try it out, and then you can see for yourself, right, whether you think it's going to work for you, right, or whether you get something from it. All right, so try this out. Sit up straight. Okay, get your posture together in the way that I described. Sitting on a chair, maybe you're sitting on the floor or on a cushion. However it is, you want your spine to be upright and energetic, but you also want to be relaxed. Okay, so as you just bring yourself into alignment and start to do your breathing, and just notice the places in your body that are holding tension, and just allow that tension to be released so that you're using the minimal amount of muscular tension that you need in order to keep yourself upright. All right. And you might do some small adjustments as you continue to sit, but try to sit still if you can. All right. So, to work on deep breathing, place your hand on your belly and just feel your belly rising and falling as you breathe. All right. Breathe in and allow your belly to expand. Breathe out and your belly contracts, it gets smaller. Something very soothing about just placing your hand on your belly and breathing. It's a very simple but very powerful technique. You might notice that having a hand on your belly is a soothing gesture. You might notice that it might not feel completely comfortable to you either. We tend to hold a lot of energy in our bellies, right? Like we don't let our bellies just relax very often, right? We go through life and our bellies remain armored, you know. So it's something to think about, and a lot of us carry wounds that we experience somewhere in this region. So you might feel discomfort as a result, and breathe into that, right? Meditation often provides a mix of different kinds of feelings, emotions, sensations, thoughts, etc. It's good to take the point of view that all of these experiences, everything you think or feel, everything that you experience in meditation has a place, it has a purpose, it has a reason for coming to you today. All right, so now you work on making your breath slow. By slowing down the rhythm of your breath, you also slow down the rhythm of your body. Your breath and your heartbeat are the fundamental rhythms of your being. As long as you're a physical being on this earth, you will be breathing and you'll have a heartbeat. Otherwise, you will not be alive long. By paying attention to our breath and making it slower, we make our perception of time change. Now, the power of this is it slows down our bodies, yes. It helps trigger the relaxation response, very important. And it even slows down our thoughts and even our feelings. Now, it may take some time for you to notice that, but you make your breath slower by just extending it, right? By breathing out the amount that you would normally breathe out, and then breathing out some more. Extend your exhalation, and then breathe in a normal amount, and then breathe in some more. That's simple. Working on deep, slow breathing right now. It's easy to forget. It's easy to go back to your regular unconscious pattern of breathing. But hopefully, by having your hand here on your belly, this alerts you to that, right? Do you stop feeling movement in your belly? Because, well, okay, then, focus on making your breath deep again, right? Focus on relaxing that belly. And as you breathe in, allow it to expand, right? As you breathe out, allow that to contract and get smaller. All right. So for rhythmic and heart centered, we're going to work on feeling the heartbeat and bringing the breath into balance with the heartbeat. All right. So now this is more difficult. Not everyone can feel their heartbeat right away. Uh, we've known from teaching this to lots of people that about half can. All right. So I'm just telling you that because if you can't feel your heartbeat, don't let it concern you. Right. You will feel it if you stick with it and keep on trying and keep on listening. You'll feel it. Um, what we were looking for here to make the breath both rhythmic and heart centered is to have the same number of beats on the inhalation as we do on the exhalation. So, obviously that relies on that you can feel enough of your heartbeat to count those beats. Okay. If you can't, if you're struggling with that, that's okay, right? Imagine it. Okay. You have a sense of how quickly your heart is beating on a subconscious level. Okay. So if you just take a guess at it, it's probably going to be pretty close, even if you can't feel a single beat, right? Just count in your head, right? How quickly you count is probably going to be close to your actual heartbeat. Okay. Um, don't get hung up on it, right? It's a device. Okay. If you can feel the heartbeat, great, right? Now, here's a tip just to help you to feel it. Place one or both hands on your chest. All right. I happen to have arms on my chair, so I'm comfortable doing this. All right. Try this out. Okay. Practice your deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered breathing and just sit for a few moments here, feeling the energy of your palms on your chest. Notice the sensation of that. Notice the thoughts that you have. Notice the feelings that you get. What does it feel like to sit in this way? As you breathe in, feel that your heart is taking in life, vitality, love, light, all the that is your heart is being revitalized and refreshed. And as you breathe out, feel your heart expressing yourself. We have such a drive to express ourselves, right? There's so many ways we can do that. It's like your heart's song, the vibration of your being. Feel that your heart is being energized and filled with love and light, and then naturally attunes to that and spreads that as a vibration that goes beyond you into the space around you. And whatever feelings arise, whatever emotions you have, welcome them. All right, we'll end our practice session there. I'll have a few things to say, but we'll return to practice again in a bit. Now, please feel free to drop me a comment if you have a question or something you're thinking about or something experience, something you want to share. Feel free to do that at any time. I will be. I'm very happy to hear what you're experiencing. Um, Now, I want to say, placing your hand on your belly can be very soothing, and it can also be triggering, right? I mean, it because again, our hearts, our emotional hearts, um, are often wounded. That's just a reality, right? Um, the part of ourself that feels everything so deeply, it's very easy for that part of ourselves, our hearts, to get hurt, right? Um, I mean, I dare say, right? You haven't lived very much if you haven't been hurt. Those are part of life, um, and a lot of times those hurts, those wounds, haven't been really been healed. They've just been kind of covered up. We have repressed them, or like a wound any kind of physical wound that hasn't fully healed, right? We sort of limp along, right? Um, I'm limping a little bit because I got a knee injury right now, so that's why I use that metaphor. you know, we're still we're limping around because of the wounds in our heart. I don't know. That's a mixed metaphor. I don't know if that makes sense, right? um, so it's very common for. I mean, if I say to you, sit down and energize your heart with your breath, pay attention to your heart, all of this, right? It might well touch upon these unresolved wounds. It probably will, right? I mean, and maybe not every single time, right? There can be a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure in just feeding the source of yourself, right? Feeding yourself on a very fundamental level, right? Energetically. Um, so, not to say it'll always be difficult, but it might be, right? I mean, it's something you have to be prepared for. Okay. So it is sometimes said that anything you do to better yourself, any kind of self development, also carries with it some risk, right? So, I have I'm into athletics and sports and stuff like this. Um, so what's the risk of that? Well, I mean, there's always a risk of injury, right? Whenever you do exercise, um, no matter how gentle it is, there's always a possibility, even if it's low, right? There's a possibility that you get hurt. You know, here you are trying to build yourself up and whatever, and oh no, that's how I hurt my knee, by the way. I don't actually know how I did it. I mean, I know when I did it. It was in I one of the things I do is Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So sometime in that session of what is basically wrestling, grappling, I managed to hurt my knee. I don't know when it was, but anyway, right? Anything that is powerful that works to build up your body, your mind, your spirit. Um, Carries with it some possibility there's a risk. All right. Now, if you tune into your heart and you meditate on your heart, this can bring incredibly positive benefits. All right. Um, and it can be difficult. Okay. It can be difficult because it's going to connect you to things that pain you, it's going to connect you to your wounds. So I don't want to make this sound like it's completely negative. It is what it is, right? Um, are you going to be not reminded of the pain that's in your heart if you don't meditate? I doubt it, right? Um, Life has a way of bringing the things that are unresolved within you to your attention, right? Um, so, it's probably going to come up at an inconvenient time, right? I mean, so the cost, if you want to look at it that way, or the risk, right, of doing this kind of meditation, or maybe any kind of meditation, right, um, is that you uncover parts of yourself, and then that can be somewhat difficult to deal with, right? Or it can be unexpected, So this is actually one of the things that we really look for with this practice. Okay, we look for the unexpected. We look for the things that are a surprise, right? Um, the things that we expect, it's like, okay, those are things that are already in your conscious mind, right? We expect them because we've thought about it, right? And our experience is lining up with our expectation, okay? The things that just hit us out of the blue, right? We had no idea that would happen. That's something else, right? That's something that is arising from, excuse me, my nose is running. That's something that is arising from your unconscious mind, right? Your heart. And that's of great interest. Okay. So I encourage you to, when you're meditating, to take a kind of expansive view of what's happening, right? To say everything that's happening has some kind of place, some kind of purpose, some kind of reason, and some kind of meaning, right? It's a very meaningful environment, right? So try to adopt that point of view, but its meaning might not be what is immediately apparent at the time. Okay, so example, right? Here's a common example for me. Um, um, because I often have long had an interest in martial arts, studied and I've studied lots of different things, and have you know practiced and sparred and for a long time. Um, a lot of times I start thinking about a martial arts situation. Sometimes I'm fearful. Sometimes I'm thinking about something that, it's an opportunity or whatever. I'm trying to figure something out, right? Or a technique or whatever. Um, so what kind of meaning does that have, right? Like if I start thinking about a fight and I'm scared of something, right? Or I'm in fear or whatever. What does that mean? Does that have a literal meaning? Like, oh my God, what if I'm in this situation of fight? Not necessarily, right? He- That's a place that my mind goes because I'm comfortable, with that, right? Um, oh, I have a comment here. Let's see, from Toddy Fan. I can't always watch these live, but I enjoy these sessions. Oh, great! I'm so glad to hear that. And I believe we are also friends on Twitter, so that's nice to see. um, all right, so there's always a meaning, right? But then you have to allow the meaning to unfold, right? It might not, in fact, it probably won't be the meaning that seems obvious or immediately apparent, right? So I like to treat my meditation sessions kind of similar to like how you might treat a dream, right? How you might interpret a dream, think about a dream. Its meaning that you arrive at um, might be different from the one that you thought it was initially. All right. Okay. So I feel like I've done lots of different kinds of meditation in my life. Right? I've been meditating since I was small child. I mean, I was lucky enough to grow up in a spiritual community. Um, don't I look like that's the case, right? um, maybe less so because I got my beard trimmed, so it's not as big as it was. But so I've done lots of different kinds of meditation, right? Not every kind of meditation is so powerfully connects you to your heart, and hence to the pain that you carry in your heart, as this one does. So you know that's an opportunity, and it's also a yeah, it's can be a difficulty as well, right? Meditation is unique in this way, right? Meditation doesn't just develop the self that you know right now, right? It doesn't just make you a slightly better version of yourself, right? It changes you on a much more fundamental level, right? You learn who you really are, and that's a big part of the purpose, right? Um, is to fully explore yourself and to explore it in a way that you come into contact with something that you don't often know about yourself or experience about yourself, which is your unlimited dimension of your being, right? Usually, when we think about ourselves, almost everything that we know about ourselves is limited, right? Um, it's like these are my memories, this is my childhood, this is my personality, right? All these things are limited. Almost everything that we think about ourselves um, is limited. So, where then is the unlimited, right? If I say to you, there's a part of you that is timeless, infinite, perfect, right? That on some level you are a being of infinite light and love. You might say, wow, man, that sounds how do I tap into that? How do I experience that? Right. Well, how would it change your notion of who you are if that was real to you, right? Um, if that was an experience that you had, not just one time that you dimly remember, but that you had that experience a lot, right? That became part of just your inner world, right? That is what meditation is. That's kind of the promise of it, right? That you experience your unlimited nature, and then you explore it. You come to feel and understand the qualities that you have in a very different way, right? Because to think of ourselves as just okay, I have this mental, qualities or whatever, right? I have these patterns. I have this kind of personality. I have, right? To think of ourselves in that way, um, it's not satisfactory, right? I mean, we long for more, right? The human being is filled with longing, you know? Um, however far we've gone in life, we know there's a lot further to go, right? Um, so, uh, meditation is to experience that internally, right? All right, so let's try again. All right, and I want to work with an aspect of the breath I haven't focused on very much, right? That's the final element, which is to make the breath full, right? To make the breath bigger and more powerful than how it typically is. Okay, so the breath is an incredible, like, it's not just a metaphor, right? It's a tool. Okay, it is. The Sufis have a word for breath. Okay, And that word is nafs, right? Nafs means breath. And nafs also means the ego, right? It means the self. Isn't that interesting, right? The breath and the word for the breath and the self, same word. Fascinating, right? Um, we by exploring the breath, we are exploring the self, right? By making the breath bigger and more powerful, we're going to be working on the full breath. We make the self bigger, the self more powerful, right? We open ourselves to experience the unlimited. All right, so let's take another session of practice with this in mind. All right. So again, you adopt your good upright posture, upright but relaxed, and you tune into your breath, making your breath deep. So expanding your belly as you breathe in and contracting your belly as you breathe out, making your breath slow, just simply taking more time to complete an inhalation and an exhalation than you normally do. And then working on making your breath rhythmic and heart centered. You might want to place one hand or maybe both hands on your chest as you do this. Help you tune in to the physical beating of your heart. Again, if you cannot feel that, don't let it worry you. If you stick with this practice, you will eventually feel it. Having your hand here is often quite helpful. If you feel one or two beats and then you lose track of it, you just use that, okay? Now, if you are feeling it, or if you're just even if you're just imagining it, make the count of your breath the same on the inhalation and the exhalation. All right. So 8 beats in, 8 beats out. Let's say. Okay. If um, that's too long, maybe that's pushing you. Um, then you do a little bit shorter. But the main thing is the same number of beats on the inhalation and the exhalation. Now let's work on making the breath bigger than before, making it fuller, making it more powerful. So squeeze your abdominal muscles as you breathe out and begin to put far more work into breathing than you normally do. Right? It's going to take a lot more muscular activity than you might think, right? So you might notice as you continue to push yourself on the exhalation that there's a lot more actually that you can breathe out, right? And this is really the key to developing the full breath. Breathe out more. If you breathe out more, you're going to be able to breathe in more, right? Now, it's very important if you're working with a full breath, you must also keep the breath slow, all right? You, this is why I suggest a count of 8 beats in and 8 beats out. If you breathe too much and you start to breathe, I mean, you know, again, we're used to breathing just as a little bit, right? So if you start breathing more, it changes the blood CO2 and oxygen level in your blood and then in your brain as well. And this is why sometimes you get lightheaded um, from like if you hyperventilate or something. So you don't want to hyperventilate, right? You're going to avoid that by keeping your breath rhythm slow. Okay. So you're taking fewer breaths per minute, far fewer than normal, but your breath's much bigger, much slower, much more powerful. Right. That's what we're aiming for. So try that out. Become aware of all of the muscles that come into play when you breathe. Now, I also want to just add that when you're working with a full breath, it's not all going to be deep in your belly. Okay, maybe half of it will be, maybe three quarters, something like that, right? But at some point, your breath will continue. You will have fully expanded your belly, and then you will continue and expand your chest as well. Okay, so the full breath is a combination of these two types of breathing that the human being is capable of. The diaphragmatic kind, that's the belly breathing, and what's called thoracic breathing, that's breathing in your chest. So you're going to do both of those, right? Like anytime you really breathe as much as you can, you're going to be doing both. So whenever if you take a really big breath, um, right? So keep working on that. Okay, breathe out more and breathe in more. Feel your heart receiving that endless flow of love and light, of vitality, of inspiration. What a wonderful word, inspiration, that which lifts you up and gives you hope, but it's also the word that we use. It literally means to breathe in. What a wonderful word. And then as you breathe out, you are you are expressing this wonderful energy that comes from your heart. Your heart is longing to express yourself. Maybe it doesn't happen through words. Maybe it just happens through the way that you feel. Maybe you've had that experience that you come into a room and you just feel someone's vibe. You feel where they're at, right? This is how sensitive our hearts are. We can do this, all right? It tells us that our hearts are always communicating, whether we're aware of it or not. Our hearts are always speaking. And right now, we're just energizing that. Breathe in and take into your heart much more energy, breath, inspiration than you're used to taking in. Breathe out and extend that current to infinity. You might notice that the breath on the inhalation has a different energy as the breath on the exhalation. See if you can pay attention to the breath so closely that you notice how different the energy feels at the very beginning of the inhalation, as your breath matures and reaches the kind of middle point of your inhalation. And then as you continue on and the inhalation reaches its peak power, which happens at the end of the inhalation, notice how that energy changes. Notice how it builds. And the same for the exhalation. Energy of the exhalation is different at the very beginning. The exhalation is new. And then as it matures, as you reach the middle, as you reach the very end. This is the part of the breath that we often don't experience because we just kind of live in that middle zone, right? Where the breath is small, all the way in, all the way out. Deep, slow, heart centered, rhythmic, and full breathing. That's what we're looking for. All right, so in our practice session here, I want to recommend to you guys that if you do this, if you practice this, it's a good idea. Just write down a few things afterwards, right? What did you feel? What did you experience? Um, what did it mean to you? What were the thoughts you were having? What kind of thoughts? Um, are you going to be having thoughts? Yeah, probably, right? I mean, that's what your mind does after all. Um, what were the thoughts that surprised you? Most thoughts follow on the heels of other thoughts, right? Um, you think about something you have to do, and it reminds you of something else you have to do, etc. Right? It's a chain of thought. You might make connections in a way that's unique to you, but when a thought leads to another thought, right? And you can usually trace it back. Pay particular attention to the thoughts that just hit you out of nowhere, right? Like I said, this is a sign of your unconscious. This is a sign of your heart trying to make itself aware, right? To make your conscious mind aware of it, right? Um, so your heart is always speaking, but not necessarily in words, right? Words are from the mind, right? Um, your heart speaks in feeling. The heart speaks in maybe imagery, but maybe not, right? Um, your heart is communicates in the language of pure emotion. Uh, that's a little bit difficult to understand for our minds, right? Can you understand emotion with your mind? Mm, shallowly, right? You understand emotion by feeling emotion, right? Um, so this is what we're looking for, right? We want to open our hearts to feeling everything, right? We cannot limit ourselves as much as we might like. We cannot limit ourselves to just the good, just the positive, right? Say, hey, heart, listen up. Uh, you gave me some painful stuff last time. Don't do that again. Just get it, just the good stuff this time, right? You're not going to give me any wounded stuff, are you? Well, you might, right? I mean, it won't necessarily happen every time, but you cannot limit yourself in that way, right? Because that's not real, it's like you can't say to another person, hey, I love you, but don't ever hurt me or question me. I mean, come on, that's not no one can promise that, right? It's not a real relationship then, right? um, and we know this about relationships, right? We know that we long for them and we fear them at the same time. So excuse me. uh, hmm, I wonder if I'm having coming down with a cold or something. My nose is running. Mm. Um, all right. So every experience has value, right? Um, but we want to go further. Okay. So you're having an experience. Let's say it's a difficult experience, a challenging, painful experience. Embrace it, right? And not just embrace it. Go with it. Okay. Don't resist it. Don't say, "Oh, it's okay. It's fine." Don't minimize it. Don't say that doesn't hurt or that doesn't matter or whatever, right? These are things which try to put your feelings in a box, it doesn't matter, you know not helpful. uh, I mean, imagine if that was a little kid, they got hurt, and then you said to them, well, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter. I mean, it's unlikely to be helpful at the moment, right? Usually, what people respond to when they're in pain is they'll say, "I feel you," I've experienced pain too. I'm with you. Uh, that must be very intense. Uh, so I would recommend doing that same thing with yourself. Um, I'm going to just be with this. I'm not gonna try to categorize it. I'm not gonna try to use concepts and words. And no, I'm just going to breathe into it. Right. This takes a tremendous amount of focus and determination. Right. Um, and we don't always have the time. I'll be honest. Right. Say, okay, I've got 5 minutes to meditate or whatever. Oh my God, what's happening? That's not what I expected. I thought it'd be just peaceful and rejuvenating. I hope it is. I hope, most of the time I hope it is. Um, but you have to be right prepared. That's right. Self development is not going to be easy 100% of the time. Right. So when something comes up, you can respect it even if you don't have the time to deal with it in that moment. Right. Maybe you don't have the time to fully experience it. Okay. Right. And say to yourself, I'm going to come back to this. Right. That's right. That's the attitude I suggest. Or let's say what's worked for me. Right. I'm going to come back to this. This matters. We never want to minimize it. Right. Um, now, we want to use our minds to focus on our hearts, right? And who we truly are. Okay. So I've spoken about this in other classes, but these are the different stages that we're looking to go through in the practice of meditation. Okay. So first step, focusing the mind, right? Now, I hope I've given you plenty to focus on here, right? Because I'm telling you, oh, the way that you normally breathe, change all that, right? Make it very different. So this is actually, I know you're like, what? This is hard. I thought meditation was going to be easy. I thought meditation was just like clear your mind or whatever. Um, well, I'm teaching a certain method of it, right? And so, what's the benefit of this? It gives your mind something to do, right? So that rather than your mind fighting you or being bored or impatient or whatever, your mind goes, "Oh, okay, you want me to do this? All right, I can do that. I'll monitor the situation. I'll focus on it." Okay, so this is we call the first stage, concentration. Okay, we want that to deepen. Now, this might take some time. Okay, so if you ever heard somebody say, okay, here's how long you should be meditating or whatever, they might be saying that because 5 minutes is not necessarily enough for your concentration to deepen into the state of flow. All right. So you might need longer for that. You might need, well, you might need more time. I mean, I don't know. It depends on where, it depends on a whole host of other factors, right? But this is why it's great if you really want to learn this. Um, you have at least one time a week that you sit for longer, right? Um, Now, maybe you have never really meditated for very long, right? So you start with 5 minutes, perfectly fine, right? But on that day where you have more time, push yourself, okay? Sit for longer because you want to get to this place where I'm not having to work and work and work. Oh, my mind wants to be distracted. No, force it back, right? You don't want to, you want to get beyond that to this flow state, okay? Where your mind has gotten used to focusing on your breath in the ways that I've described, right? Um, and where it stops being really hard to keep that focus and it starts to just flow. Okay, so um, we call it in my Sufi school we call this contemplation. Okay, so concentration, step one, stage one, contemplation, this state of flow. All right, where you're very focused, but it doesn't feel hard anymore. It feels easy. It feels like you are just being swept along by the current here. Okay. And it can take some time to like build that up, right? It's like I don't know, it's like a wheel, a big heavy wheel or something like that that's at rest and you have to get it going. Oh my God, it's hard to get this wheel going. It's really heavy, right? But once it gets going, it has its own inertia, right? Where it's much easier to keep it going. Okay. So if you're thinking about how to structure your practice, this is what I would recommend to you. Okay. Um, Now, what we would like to get to in meditation is beyond this still, right? So we started with our minds unfocused, right? And we focus them, concentration. Um, we got into a state of flow. Um, the third step um, is not as easy to take. It is not under our conscious power, right? This is the experience of the infinite. Okay, what we might call the state of meditation, been called samadhi, right? It's been called lots of different things. Um, it is the experience of the infinite, the experience of the unlimited. So when you get into this state of flow, the next step to it is the realization that that flow is actually unlimited. It's actually infinite. Okay, so there are different ways we might experience the infinite, right? We might experience it as unlimited time, right? So the eternal, um, very common, the feeling um, that I have always existed, that there's a part of me that has been here forever, right? A wonderful, wonderful kind of experience to have. When you might experience the unlimited um, as a vastness. Okay, so unlimited in the sense of distance. You might start to feel like your sense of yourself. I mean, normally when we have our eyes open and we're conscious and whatever, we have a pretty well defined sense of self. Like I'm like, okay, here's my head, here's where it ends, and this is not my head over here, right? Or this is it's connected to our physical bodies. Um, when you're sitting still and your eyes are closed, you might start to feel differently about yourself. The boundaries of what I think of as me versus not me, we start to shift. It becomes more fluid. You don't have all the external cues that tell you this is where I end, right? So, very common experience as you get into a state of flow is you might start to feel like your body is actually much bigger, right? You're starting to tune into more your energetic field. Your energetic field is fully capable of filling a room, right? Um, that's why, like I said, right, you can enter a room and just feel someone's vibe. Somebody's in there. Their vibe has filled that space. I know it's not very scientific for me to say it that way, but you're either with me or not here, right? Maybe you felt that, maybe not. Um, now you might start to feel like that. Your body, having grown bigger, becomes unimaginably vast, right? It becomes unlimited and fills the entire universe. Uh, Wonderful, wonderful experience, right? You might experience the unlimited as perfection, right? As the endless quality of something that is ideal, right? Um, it's hard to explain this, right? You have to feel it, but that's what we're gearing towards, or what we're kind of the framework we're thinking of, right? So is this going to happen automatically? Maybe not, right? You might not experience any of the stuff that I'm talking about. You might just feel rested and refreshed from your meditation. If so, fantastic. I'm very happy with that outcome, right? Um, you might feel okay, you've uncovered something about yourself, you've learned something about yourself. Great. Maybe you never experienced this. I don't know what Dr. Bear's talking about with this state of flow. I hadn't experienced that, right? Okay, that's fine, right? So, this is stuff that I think might be helpful, right? It had helped me to learn this stuff, let's say. So maybe it'll help you as well. All right, so we're out of time for tonight. I like to keep these sessions to an hour. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. I do this class every week, Tuesdays, 7 p.m. And I hope to see you again next week. Namaste.